A young man living in a quiet countryside cabin begins experiencing strange events after midnight. No neighbors. No phone signal. And something, or someone, is knocking at his window every single night at 3:12 a.m. The deeper he investigates, the closer the terror comes. A man moves into an inherited cabin deep in the woods to escape his past. But each night, something visits him. First, it's whispers. Then knocks. Then footsteps on the ceiling. By the seventh night, he's no longer alone in his mind, or his home. When Nathan Cole first arrived at the cabin, the sun was setting low behind the hills, casting long shadows through the trees. It was quiet. The kind of quiet that presses against your ears. Until even your own breathing feels too loud. The cabin had belonged to his uncle, a man he barely knew, who had vanished in the same woods over 20 years ago. When Nathan inherited it, there wasn't much to think about. He needed a break. A fresh start. After all, it's hard to run into your past when you're this far off the grid. Soft footstep sounds, creaking wood floor. He unpacked his things in silence. No phone signal. No internet. Just a dusty old radio and the sounds of the forest. The first night was uneventful, at least on the surface. Just the creaking of old wood, and the distant rustle of leaves in the dark. But as he lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, he felt watched. Not by an animal. Not even by a person. It was more like the house itself was aware of him. He told himself it was just the change. The mind plays tricks when you're alone. But that didn't explain the tapping. Very faint. 3 soft taps. On the window beside his bed. Sound, tap, tap, tap. Nathan sat up. The moonlight spilled across the wooden floor. There was nothing outside. Just the trees. Still. Watching. The next morning, he laughed it off. The wind, he muttered. Except. The trees hadn't moved. By the second night, the cabin had begun to settle. Nathan cooked himself a basic dinner. Sat by the fireplace. Read an old novel he found on the bookshelf, spine cracked, pages yellowed. But he couldn't shake the feeling. Something had changed since the first night. The silence wasn't peaceful anymore. It was waiting. When he went to bed, he left the lights on. Just a small lamp. It made him feel safer. But at exactly 3:12 a.m., he knew the time because he glanced at the wall clock. The light flickered. And went out. Sound, buzzing light, then power down. In that moment, the cabin was swallowed by darkness. And again, the tapping returned. Sound, tap, tap, tap. But slower this time. He didn't move. Didn't breathe. Just stared at the window. This time, there was something there. A shadow. Narrator, calmer, unsettling. Tall. Slender. Perfectly still. It stayed like that for several minutes. Then it was gone. No footprints. No marks. Nothing. He told himself it was a dream. But his breath fogged in the air. Even though it was 72 degrees inside. That night, Nathan locked every door, closed every curtain, and kept a kitchen knife under his pillow. He wasn't scared. He just didn't like surprises. But it didn't matter. The cabin had already noticed him. At midnight, he heard movement upstairs. Which was odd. There was no upstairs. Just a sealed attic. Slow footsteps above. They were soft. Deliberate. Pacing. Nathan stood below the attic hatch, staring at it. Dust drifted down from the seams. Something was walking. Inside the ceiling. He found a ladder, climbed up, and opened the hatch with shaking hand. The attic was empty. Except for a journal. The journal was bound in old, cracked leather. The kind of material that feels wrong when you touch it, too dry, too brittle, too alive. Nathan flipped through the pages. Most of it was nonsense. Scribbles. Rumblings. Pages written backward. Some with entire paragraphs scratched out in black ink so deeply It tore the paper. But one entry stood out. If you see it once, it will see you forever. Another page. Don't let it in. Don't. Nathan stared at those words long into the night. And just before he closed the book, he noticed one final line. Written upside down. The cabin is not built on land, it's built on bones. Every sound, a whisper. Every shadow, a watcher. And that night, it didn't knock. It spoke. Static, followed by whispering voice. Nathan. He sat up, heart pounding, eyes wide. The voice was inside the room. But when he turned on the light, no one was there. He checked the windows. Still locked. He checked the door. Still bolted. The whispers continued. From the walls. From beneath the floor. And worst of all, from inside his own mind. Voice echoed in background. He's awake now. He remembers. Nathan drove to town the next day, the first time he'd left the cabin since he arrived. He needed answers. He asked about the property. The history. The old man at the diner just stared at him and shook his head. Should have burned it down like the others, he mumbled. You didn't hear about the 3 before you? Nathan blinked. 3 what? Owners. Before your uncle. They all disappeared. No bodies. No blood. Just gone. Like the wind swallowed them. That night, Nathan tried to leave. Packed his bags. Started the truck. But it wouldn't start. Not a click. Not a sound. He checked the engine. The wires had been chewed through, like something with sharp teeth had eaten them. And when he went back inside the cabin, the journal was open. To a new page. One that wasn't there before. You cannot leave after night 4. He is beneath you now. That night, the sounds began again. Not footsteps. Not knocking. But breathing. Sound, low, raspy breathing near Mike. Nathan could feel it, warm air on his face in the dark. He reached out with a trembling hand. And touched nothing. The bed was empty. But the breathing remained. Then, 3 knocks. Loud. Fast. Final. Sound, knock. 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 The window shattered inward. But there was no wind. Only a black hand. With fingers too long, and too many joints. It reached in. Not for him. But for the journal. It took it. And left. That night, Nathan awoke in the woods. Barefoot. Bleeding. His clothes soaked in dew. He had no memory of leaving the cabin. But the path he stood on was made of bones. Skulls. Spines. Rib gauges of things too large to be human. And at the center of it all, a stone altar. And something tied to it. Nathan approached slowly. It was himself. Crescendo of horror ambience. A mirror version. Identical. Motionless. Eyes wide open. Mouth sewn shut. The real Nathan screamed and ran, but the forest twisted behind him, and every path brought him right back to the cabin. The journal sat on the table. Nathan stared at the journal, its pages turning on their own now. Every time he blinked, new words appeared. As if written by the dark itself. You invited him. You fed him your fear. Now he will wear your skin. The house creaked like an old ship in a storm. But it wasn't the wind. It was moving. The entire cabin was breathing. 4 o'clock emoji, night 7, the true form narrator, low, intense. Nathan could hear the floorboards groan as something heavy walked beneath them. A sound that didn't echo in the room, but under it. Sound, deep footsteps beneath wooden boards, growing closer. The lights flickered. Then burst. One by one. Sparks danced in the dark. And then, the trapdoor in the kitchen, the one he'd never noticed before, opened itself. Sound, creaking wooden door opening slowly. From it, rose the shadow. Tall. Faceless. No mouth. No eyes. But Nathan could feel it smiling. Its arms stretched unnaturally, fingers dragging across the walls, leaving behind bleeding handprints that sizzled. The creature spoke. But not with words. With memories. Nathan's memories. His parents. His childhood. His fears. Everything he had tried to forget, the creature now wore them. "You are mine. You always were. You always will be." The journal snapped shut and levitated. A circle of black ash formed on the cabin floor. Symbols scorched into the wood. Nathan couldn't move. His legs refused. His body turned. And walked into the circle. A voice, his uncle's voice, echoed from nowhere. "Finish what I couldn't. End it, Nathan. Bury the heart." He looked down. At the center of the circle. A box. Old. Beating. Like a heart. Made from human bone. And inside. A piece of the creature. Flesh. Still alive. Still watching him. Nathan grabbed the box. And the cabin screamed. The floor split open, revealing the truth. Beneath the cabin. Were bodies. Dozens. Hundreds. All staring upward. Mouths open in eternal silent screams. He ran. Through the storm. Through the forest. But the creature followed, in every tree, every gust of wind, every blink. He made it to the cliffside. And threw the box into the fire. The sky howled. The forest ignited. The cabin twisted violently and collapsed in on itself, swallowed into the earth like a grave sealing shut. Skull and crossbones emoji. Epilogue. 1 year later. A new couple moved into the land, now cleared of debris. They built a new home. Modern. Safe. Beautiful. They found nothing of the past. No bones. No journal. But one night, the wife heard something in the woods. 3 knocks. Knock. 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 And outside their door sat an old leather journal. With fresh ink on the cover. "If you see it, oh."